Merry Christmas, everyone. So, about a month ago, I recorded a little animated fireplace to help celebrate the holidays. And today, for Christmas, I thought I'd draw a Christmas tree. It's a fun way to celebrate Christmas. So, here I am booted into FreeDOS, and this is the T2412 test release. That's the test release we update every month, and this is the one from December 2024. Next month will be T2501, and that'll actually put us on the path for FreeDOS 1.4, but that's another video that we can get into in January. So for now, let's go ahead and set up our environment. So I'm going to go into the devel directory, and I'm going to go into the Watcom C directory where I've installed Watcom, and I'm going to run the owsetEnv batch file. I also like to set up an alias for the Fed editor. That's my favorite editor for programming. And so I'm going to do an alias on Fed into C apps Fed and then fed.exe. And so now anytime that I run Fed, it'll automatically bring up Fed for me. So that's what it looks like there. All right, so let's go into my source code directory where I can start writing a program. I've got mine on my D drive where I keep everything. I've got a source directory. Let's make a new directory called tree, and we'll go into that tree directory. All right, so let's now write a little program to draw a Christmas tree. Fed tree, tree.c. All right, so a couple of things we need to have at the beginning to set this up. We'll need to do an include on standard io.h. That's just so we can print out anything at normal text mode. It turns out there's only one error message we might need to print out, but we can do also include on conio.h, and that's to print out anything directly to the screen. And we're going to do a lot of that. And so we'll also need to do include graph.h, and that's so we can do things like color. But we also need to do random numbers. And so I like to put it kind of in this order up here. So I'll do an include standard lib.h, and that's so we can do things like the rand function. And to seed that, I want to seed it with the current time, and so I need to do an include on time.h. And so that gives me the time function. And so let's just do our int main function. I don't care about any arguments, so I have an empty parameter list there. And just to remind ourselves about how we create random numbers. So we're going to do, let's just do an int I, and then let's go ahead and do, we're going to seed the random number generated with srand, and we need to give it a number. And so one way to give it a number that will change every time you run the program is to give it the number of seconds for time. And so that is, you do that with the time function, passing it null. And so that will, the time function with null will return the number of seconds. And so as the time, and that will then seed the random number generator. And so from there, we can do a for loop for I equals, we'll say 0, and then I is less than 10, and then I plus plus. But we'll return at the end, and then we're going to print out, printf, the random number, and then it's going to be rand. And let's just put this into 0 to 10. So we're going to do a modulus division there, which returns a remainder, and we'll divide by 10. Just to kind of show that we can get numbers from 0 to 9 is what that's going to generate for us, 0 to 9. So we'll go ahead and save and quit. We'll do Watcom compiler and linker on tree.c, and we'll only see a list of random numbers from 0 to 9. Every time we run the program, of course, we're going to get a separate set of numbers. I just want to show that that is how we generate random numbers. Let's go back into our program, fed tree.c. All right, so I don't actually need to generate these random numbers like this before, like I've been doing. And so let's actually do something where we're actually generating a tree. And so for that, we're going to set the video mode. So if set video mode, and we're going to set the video mode to text C80, and that'll put us into color 80 columns, 25 lines. And if it can't do that for some reason, it'll return 0. So if we'll test for 0, and then if it can't do it, that's the only time we're going to print out something using putS. And so we'll just say cannot set video mode, and then return back the operating system with some sort of an error. And then, of course, we'll see the random number generator. When we're done, we'll get a key from the keyboard, get CH, and then we'll set the video mode back to a default mode. Now, you need to be careful, by the way, with get ch, because what happens with the Open Wacom C compiler implementation is that returns 0 if it's an extended key. So like, let's say one of the function keys. And so what I like to do is test, and if that's the case, if it's an extended key, you have to call get ch again. So we're going to do a if get ch is 0, then we'll just call get ch one more time. I'll put that as a one line if, and I don't even, if I need to do that, it's just as one line. I don't even need these squiggle braces, but I like to do it anyway. All right, so what this is going to do is this will set our video mode up here, and then it'll, of course, see the random number generator that we don't need yet, but we will later. It'll wait for a key, and then it'll set the video mode back to normal. And so we'll go ahead and save and quit. Wacom C compiler and linker. We'll do quiet on tree.c. And you can see that we're just blanking the screen, waiting for a key, press space, and there we are back to the operating system. All right, so let's draw, start drawing a tree here. So I'll do fed into tree. And so how are we going to do this? And so what I want to do, draw a tree. And at the end, we'll say done. All right, so what I want to do is I want to basically draw a triangle. And so I'm going to, let's draw it just to kind of see what it's going to look like. Let's do for row equals, now I know the first row on the screen is actually 1, but I'm going to do some addition and subtraction here. So I'm going to actually start the row at 0, and then as long as row is less than 20, then we're going to do row plus plus. All right, so we're going to do our values here. We'll also do a for column equals, and then this is the middle of the screen is 40. So we're going to start at 40 minus the row. And as long as column is less than or equal to 40 plus the row, and then at the end, we're going to do col plus plus. All right, so what have I done here? And so I've set this to be row of 0 to 19. That's what this is doing, starting at row of 0. And then as long as row is less than 20, so it's going to be 0 to 19. And I did the 0. I started at 0 because over here on the column, I'm subtracting 40, or subtracting that from 40. And so this basically says for the first row, column is going to start at 40 and it will end at 40. So it's going to iterate once because it's going to be less than or equal to 40 plus row. And so if row is 0, it's going to start at 40 and it's going to end at 40, but it's going to go through one loop. And then once I've done that, let's do an outmem of an array, which I haven't defined yet. We'll just print out one item there. All right, so what this is going to do, probably should set my text position up here. So we'll do set text position. And so this is going to be a row and column reference, but row starts at 0, so I need to add 1 to it. And then column, so what is the column in this case? Well, column is actually 40 minus the row. And so for the first entry, we should be at 40. And then for when row equals 1, it's a second loop through, then it's going to start our position at 40 minus 1, or 39. And you'll notice I'm matching that 40 minus row to over here where it says 40 minus row as the start. And that's why I've done that. And so I'm going to just do the outmem of some short array t, which I'll put up here. So we'll do a t, char t, which will be 1 element long. And then I also have my int function. Let's also do an int on row and an int on column. And so that should get me that. Let's just force a value here. We'll set t0 equals to some character, just so we can kind of see what the tree looks like, right? We're not actually fully drawing the tree. We're kind of walking our way up to it. And so what this is doing is it's going to, for every row, from 0 to 19, or in this case, it's going to be, since I'm setting position to 1 plus row, it's going to go from 1 to 20. It's going to print out an increasing number of lines. And so I'm using outmem because I need to use that later on for something else. And so I'm going to just do that here. And it's pulling, the outmem function is like printing text, but it's actually printing it from an array. And so the array here is the T array, which is 1 element long. And I'm going to print out this number of elements. So I'm printing out the first element is what that's doing. And then when it's done, I'm just going to go ahead and just wait for a key, and then it's going to set the video mode back to normal. So we're going to go ahead and save and quit. Watcom compiler linker quiet tree.c. And you can see here I've got a little tree, starting to build a little tree here, where it's a sort of a nice little triangular tree in text mode. All right, so let's go and start making that tree look nice. And so fat tree.c. All right, so what I want to do is define characters of a tree. Let's actually not do this yet in Fed. Let's go to Edit. And so if we go to Utilities and then ASCII table, we can see the characters that we can use in the code page 437 extended ASCII table. And so what I'm going to use down here are these 3 increasing shaded values, right? You can see in the bottom right what that looks like in the table itself. You can just see my cursor going over each spot. That's why they're changing brightnesses. And so B0 is this light shaded box. B1 is sort of a medium shaded box, and then B2 is a darker shaded box. I'm going to use those to actually define the tree, sort of the bits of the tree. I'm also going to make some sort of little decorations on the tree. And so for that, I'm going to use various kinds of dots. And so down here, I'm going to use this here, the degree symbol, F8. I'm also going to use F9, which is the sort of bullet character, and then we use FA, which is the small sort of dot, the small dot. I'm also going to print out some lights on the tree, and the only thing I can really use that I think really looks like lights are these little squares over here. That's an FE, and so that's what I use for a different light. And so basically I've got little decorations on these little circles, and then I've got lights on the tree that look like over here. So that's what I'm going to make for my tree. So let's exit out of that and let's go back into the tree. All right, so now I need to define my tree. And so let's define that up here. So we're going to do a char of tree, and let's go ahead and initialize the value of tree. So I wanted the 3 different sort of parts of the different branches of a tree. Those were 0xb0, 0xb1, and 0xb2. Those are all parts that defined the tree. I also had 0xf8, 0xf9, 0xfa, and those were all things that were sort of dots on the screen. And then I also had the lights. That was 0xfe. And so those were, so let's put them in here. Those were the different lights that might show up on the tree. And so those are my different things that I can pull from, and that's why I needed to have a random number. I want to be able to pull random numbers from, if we count these up, right? So there's 3 different types of characters to use for a tree. There's 3 different types of characters to use for these different dots, and there's 1 over here for lights. And so that's 7 things, but it really is array elements from 0 to 6. And so I want to pull random numbers between 0 and 6. All right, so let's do that down here. So I've pulled, I've been defining this T0 as being the character that I want to print out. But let's actually do it down here. All right, so I want to, inside this loop where I'm printing out each row of text to make up my tree, this is where I'm going to add some extra stuff. So I'm going to, let's pull a random number. So I've got that I up there. So let's do I is a random number that is modulo of 7. And so what that's giving me is a random number between 0 to 6. And let's define the color based on what we've got. All right, so if you remember up at the top, the first 3 elements defined parts of the tree. Those I want to have be green. And if it's anything else, I want it to have a green background, but I want it to be a different type of color. And actually that means I probably should do this. When I'm drawing the tree, let's set the background color, set BK color to 2. That gives me a green background color. And so that means here, where after I've defined the random number, if that I is less than 3, so what that means is it's from 0, it's either a 0, 1, or a 2. And so those are the positions in the array that define the tree. So if it's from 0, 1, or 2, I want to define part of the tree. And so I've already got a green background. And so now I want to do is basically set some different shading on the tree itself. And so I want to have either, remember these are the sort of the shaded boxes, and I either want to use black or a bright green. So that'll give me different ways to kind of make this look more like a tree and not quite so flat. So I want to pick a 0 or a 10, right? Because in the color definitions where you've got RGB, it's actually intensity RGB. If you've got a value of green, that's lowercase low intensity 0, or I want to be green. Green is going to be lower intensity, and then 0 for red, 1 for green, and 0 for blue. And so that's what gives you the green up there. When we had set color of 2, that's where 2 comes from. But here I want this to define it as either black, or I want it to be green, bright green. And so I'm going to instead do this. If I is less than 3, then I want C. We'll define a random number or an integer of C here. C will be, I could do an if statement here, but I'm going to be really cute. I'm going to do this. So this will give me a black or a bright green. And so I'm being cute because I'm doing this. I'm saying this is basically an inline if. And so I'm going to say if rand, and then I'm going to do a bitwise AND operation on 1. So basically half the time I would expect this to be an odd number is really what that's saying. So if that is, if the 1 bit has been set on whatever this random number is, in theory that means it's an odd number, then I want to return the value of 0. Otherwise I want to return the value of 10. And so 10 would be a bright green, because again, what does that mean for bright green? If it's IRGB, then that means it's going to be a bright green or bright color, 0 for red, 1 for green, and 0 for blue. And so this is the 2 position. This is the 1 position, then that's the 2 position, the 4 position, and that's the 8 position. So 8, plus 2 is 10. So that's why I'm picking the black or bright green, and bright green is 10. All right, so having defined that, let's go up here before I forget. Let's make sure I define C as an integer value. Then down here, having set C for only if it's part of a tree, right? If we've picked a character that's going to be part of the tree, then go ahead and pick a color to make it. We'll set the color in a second. Otherwise, let's actually pick just a bright color. And so we'll just pick a nice bright color. And bright colors go from, so bright colors are IRGB, and those is going to be IRG. So that's going to be 1 for any bright value. And I want to skip 100, right? So I want to skip 1,000. I want to skip 1,000 because that means it's a bright black, and I don't want that. I want to start at 1 all the way up to 111, right? So that's what I want to have there. So I want to do, really when I think about it, what I want to have then is the color needs to go from 9 to 15. Those are the colors that I want to pick that are bright. Because if I picked 8, then that would be sort of a bright black, and that doesn't look good for some sort of a decoration on a tree. So I want to actually do C equals, and then I want 9 plus, and then we'll do rand, and then modulo with 7, because we saw this before. Rand modulo 7 will give me a value from 0 to 6. And so if it's 0, well, 9 plus 0 is 9. And if it's 6, 9 plus 6 is 15. So this will give me a value in the range of 9 to 15. And so now I can set the color right here. So I want to set the color, set text color to be whatever I have set for C. Now here I'm doing an outmem on T, and I actually haven't set T yet. So we probably should set that as well. So T0 is whatever I have in the tree array at I, right? Because that's what we picked up here. We picked up a value somewhere from 0 to 6 as I, and the reason we picked 0 to 6 is because those are the positions in our array from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And so from 0 to 6, those are the different positions in the tree array, and so that's why I'm picking that here, right? This is 0 to 6. And up here, we've already set the color for what things should be. And I think that part is correct. Let's see if that actually works. Let's go ahead and save and quit. Watcom C compiler and linker, quiet, tree.c. See if looks like I didn't make any errors. And there is my Christmas tree. And so every time I run this program, I'll get a different Christmas tree, right? So I'll get a different collection of parts of the tree. Everything has a green background, and all I'm doing to define parts of the tree, if I'm just drawing parts of the tree, is to choose one of those 3 different shaded boxes with a black or a bright green text color, and that allows me to pick basically 6 different shades of tree whenever I'm defining part of the tree. But if I'm defining sort of an ornament on the tree, I've got a green background, and I'm picking one of those 6 bright colors. So, sorry, 7 bright colors. And so from 9 to 15, and that's why I'm getting colors like, let's say, bright white and bright magenta and yellow and things like that, bright blue. And so my tree is always being defined with this variety of different colors. Now we can actually make this look even a little bit cooler. So let's draw a little bit of a trunk. And so right now we just have a triangle kind of floating out in the air. And so let's go ahead and do fed on tree.c. And then let's draw a trunk. And so right up here, draw a trunk, a bit of a trunk sitting in there. All right, so for this, I'm going to set the the text color, actually set the text color to be brown. And so brown should be 6. And you also can see this referenced as orange, but basically it's standing in for brown at this case. Now, I'm actually going to print out a couple of different characters. So I could print out like a solid rectangle, but that would look a little bit flat. We can do a little bit better than that. And it turns out, lo and behold, up here, we've already defined these 3 different, shaded boxes from a light shade to a darker shade. And so that's what we're going to use for our trunk. And it happens to be 3 characters, and so that's a very convenient place to, we have basically 1 to the left of the center, 1 at the center, and 1 to the right of the center. That's what I'm basically going to be doing here. And so if our center is at 40, then that means I can do this. For row is, where are we starting our tree? Around 20, I think. And then we'll say like row is less than 23. And then we'll do row plus plus. And so that's my loop. And then I'm going to set my text position of whatever that row is. And then it's 40 minus 1, because I want that to be 1 to the left of the center. And I could actually type that in as 39, but we'll leave it as 40 minus 1, so that way it's visual to us, and the compiler will figure it out anyway because it's a constant. And then we'll do outmem of the tree array. We're going to pull just the first 3 elements, the first parts of the tree. Now, before we were doing that in green, we were making it look like branches of a tree, but here we've got a text color of brown. And with a background color of black, it'll basically be different shades of brown. And so it looks a little bit more like a round tree trunk. And then let's go ahead and exit, save and quit. Whatcom compiler linker, quiet, tree.c. And if I run tree, there we go. We've got a little bit of a trunk there at the bottom. And so by using those shaded colors, we're actually able to make this tree look not so flat. It looks a little bit more realistic. And then we can do one other thing here at the end. So you'll notice I've got my my cursor kind of blinking at me. And so we're going to put a little message at the bottom of the screen. But actually at the same time, we should also put a star at the top of the tree, right? So every time we run this, we're going to get a different ornament or possibly just part of a tree at the very top of the tree. And so if I run that again, you'll see this time now we're getting a different type of ornament up there. But let's actually force a star to be up there. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll do fed.tree.c. And so at the very end when we're done, but before we actually wait for the keystroke, we're going to now draw a star. And so for that, I'm going to do, let's print out one character. That means I can do T0 is, we'll just do a star. And then we're going to set the text color to be, let's do, what am I doing that? Set text color to be 14. That should be a nice bright yellow. And then I'm going to set the text position, set text position to be at the first row and the 40th column. And then I'm going to do an outmem of the T array one character because I only put one thing in it. And so that should print out a nice yellow star. And we already have, when we're drawing the tree, we already have a green background. So it'll actually be a bright yellow star on a green background. So it'll still have a triangular shape on our tree. But let's also print a little message. So print a message. And then for this, we're going to set the text color to be 15 which should be bright white. I'm going to set the BK color, the background color, to be 0, and that should be, that should be black. I'm going to set the text position to be line 25, column 1, and then I'm going to out text Merry Christmas. And that should be the end of my tree. So I'm going to do File, Save and Quit, Whatcom Compiler Linker, Quiet, Tree.c. And I don't see any errors or warnings, and I can run my program. And there we go. And so what we've got is every time we run this program, we'll print out our little trunk at the bottom of the tree. It then prints out the triangular tree, randomly selecting elements from that tree array. So we can draw parts of the tree. If we're picking elements 0, 1, and 2, we're going to, if it's a tree piece, it's actually going to pick a different foreground color, black or bright green, and it's going to print that shaded element, random shaded elements that way. And so we get that black or bright green on top of a regular green, which is why we're seeing those different shades. So basically 6 different shades of tree. And then we're also printing out randomly some ornaments in there. So that way it looks kind of all pretty. And when it's done, it prints out the star at the very top right there in a bright yellow, and then it prints out the message, Merry Christmas. And so that is my Merry Christmas message to everybody. So have a great holiday, and I'll see you next year. Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon. You really do make this channel happen. Thank you very much for your support. Visit our website at FreeDOS.org. Join us on Facebook. Follow us on Mastodon. And consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you.